What's up, Commanders fans? Welcome back to Commanders HQ, your home for everything Washington football. Guys, before we dive into today's story, make sure to drop a like if you believe this team is getting closer and closer to greatness. Because that's exactly what this video is about. A team that's working relentlessly to perfect itself week after week, searching for that missing piece that could push them over the top. Dan Quinn's squad just delivered a dominant win over the Los Angeles Chargers, a 27-0 run after falling behind early. And that kind of statement performance tells us something important. This team is learning how to fight back. But as every real fan knows, one win doesn't mean the work is done. And here's where things get really interesting, because the Commanders might just have a trade opportunity that could turn this defense from good into downright terrifying. Let's break it down. Washington's defense showed flashes of dominance last week, collapsing the pocket, stuffing the run, and forcing Justin Herbert into mistakes. That's the Dan Quinn effect: aggression, speed, and physicality. The Commanders are winning at the line of scrimmage, and that's the kind of foundation championship teams are built on. But even with that improvement, some experts around the league still believe this defense is one move away from being complete. NFL.com's Kevin Patra said it perfectly. While the Commanders' defensive front looked great, there's still room for help on the outside and at free safety. And while he's right that the secondary has been inconsistent, I'd argue there's another, more urgent priority that could elevate this defense instantly. And that's the pass rush. Now, don't get me wrong, the Commanders have had their moments getting to the quarterback. Against the Raiders and Chargers, Washington's front recorded 5 sacks in each of those games. When the pass rush is on, it's on. But when it's not, you can feel it. In the other 3 games combined, this defense has only managed 5 total sacks. That inconsistency is what separates elite defenses from the rest, because when Washington's front can't generate pressure, even the best coverage schemes start to break down. And that's where the idea of a blockbuster trade comes into play. The name being floated around right now, and I've been hearing it from multiple insiders, is none other than Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals. Hendrickson is one of the league's premier pass rushers, a relentless edge threat who plays with violence, energy, and a motor that never quits. He's the kind of player who fits Dan Quinn's system like a glove. Here's the situation. The Bengals are sitting at 2-3, and their season has been derailed since Joe Burrow went down with a major injury. Cincinnati just traded for Joe Flacco to try to stay afloat, but let's be honest. If they drop a few more games before the November 4th trade deadline, they'll have to start thinking about the future. And that's where Washington could step in. If the Bengals go into their Week 10 bye with a losing record, Hendrickson could easily become one of the most valuable names on the market. He's still playing at a high level, but he's expensive, and teams in sell mode rarely hang on to star veterans when they can flip them for draft capital. Now, imagine this. Hendrickson lining up opposite Dorrance Armstrong, with Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner attacking downhill behind them. Add that to a secondary that's starting to find its rhythm with Marshawn Lattimore and Percy Butler, and suddenly this Commanders defense becomes a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. This is where timing matters. The Bengals face the Packers, Steelers, Jets, and Bears over the next 4 weeks. If they come out of that stretch at 3-6 or worse, it's rebuild time in Cincinnati. Meanwhile, Washington faces a tough but winnable stretch: Bears, Cowboys, Chiefs, and Seahawks. A 2-2 split puts the Commanders at 5-4 heading into mid-November, and if they can add a game-changer like Hendrickson before that Detroit Lions matchup in Week 10, they could be entering the European showdown with Miami in Week 11 with real momentum and maybe 7 wins before the bye. That's a playoff pace. And you know who would love that kind of spark more than anyone? Jaden Daniels. Because every great rookie quarterback needs a defense that gives him a chance to grow without playing from behind every week. Speaking of smart moves by Adam Peters, let's talk about one that's already paying off big time. Remember when everyone mocked the Commanders for trading for Deebo Samuel? National media called him washed, lazy, and overpaid. They said Washington was taking a desperate swing for a player whose best days were behind him. Well, 5 games in, that trade looks like an absolute steal. Samuel has been electric. He's giving Jaden Daniels exactly what a young QB needs: a versatile, fearless weapon who can turn a short screen into a 30-yard gain. Even before McLaurin's injury, Samuel was outproducing him, and now with McLaurin sidelined, Samuel has stepped into the wide receiver 1 role like a man on a mission. His Week 5 performance against the Chargers, 8 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown, capped off with a gutsy 4th down score from Daniels in the back of the end zone. That's veteran leadership. That's clutch. And that's the kind of offensive confidence booster that makes a defensive upgrade like Hendrickson's trade even more tempting. Because think about it, if the offense is holding its own and the defense can consistently collapse the pocket, this team isn't just competitive anymore. They're dangerous. The injuries have piled up. Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown both missed time, and yet the Commanders' offense hasn't skipped a beat. How is that possible? Sure, Cliff Kingsbury's adjustments have been sharp. The rushing attack is among the best in the NFL, but what's really kept the offense afloat has been the emergence of Luke McCaffrey, a second-year receiver who's become Jaden Daniels' safety valve, big play threat, and emotional spark all at once. Think about this. In back-to-back games against the Raiders and Falcons, McCaffrey found the end zone. Then in Week 5 against the Chargers, with the team desperate for a statement win, Daniels turned to McCaffrey on a dig shot, and the kid delivered again. That's not just production. That's trust. And that trust didn't happen overnight. When the Commanders drafted Luke McCaffrey out of Rice with the 100th overall pick in 2024, there were plenty of skeptics. He was a converted quarterback, a guy still learning the nuances of route running and timing. Some scouts said his transition to wide receiver would take years. But guess what? He didn't have years. When the Commanders brought in Deebo Samuel Sr. and drafted Jalen Lane, McCaffrey easily could have faded into the background, but instead of sulking, he went to work, studying film, refining his footwork, and learning from veterans like McLaurin and Samuel. And Dan Quinn? He noticed. When speaking to Commanders.com, he highlighted the one thing that's really made McCaffrey stand out: his competitive spirit.
"I felt the experience of the route running and all the technique that goes with that first," Quinn said. Coming in from him with his background at quarterback, almost seeing too much, but then he really got into the details at receiver, at the technique, at the specific routes. But there's one thing that separates him: this competitive spirit. That's what every coach dreams of. A player who doesn't just show up, but competes like every rep could define his career. Let's talk numbers, because Luke's not just showing flashes anymore. He's producing like a true starter. He's already closing in on his receiving yard total from all of last season, and it's only Week 5. He's separating against man coverage, he's making contested grabs look routine, and he's become one of the Commanders' most reliable third down weapons. Oh, and we're not done yet. He's also been one of the NFL's top kick returners, giving the team field position boosts and momentum shifts in key moments. That kind of versatility is rare, and in a Dan Quinn system built around toughness and effort, McCaffrey fits like a glove. Fans kept saying he deserved a bigger role, and now he's earning it, play by play, drive by drive. One of the biggest misconceptions early in the year was that Washington didn't have enough receiving depth behind McLaurin and Samuel. But Luke McCaffrey's development changes that narrative completely. He's not trying to replace McLaurin or Deebo, he's complementing them. McCaffrey's ability to work underneath coverage, find soft spots in zones, and turn short passes into big gains gives Cliff Kingsbury something every modern offense craves: flexibility. When Deebo motions out of the backfield and McCaffrey slides inside, defenses are forced to guess. Is it a bubble screen? A drag route? A misdirection run? That's the kind of unpredictability that makes an offense click. And McCaffrey's football IQ, as a former QB, gives him an edge in executing it. It's no coincidence Jaden Daniels looks more comfortable lately. Having a young receiver who sees the field through the same lens as a quarterback, that's a huge asset. What's clear now is that Dan Quinn believes in Luke McCaffrey, not as a temporary fix, but as a long-term piece. McCaffrey's rise has given this coaching staff something invaluable: options. When McLaurin and Noah Brown return, Washington's receiver rotation suddenly looks deep, dynamic, and adaptable. And yes, it might mean some difficult decisions ahead. Noah Brown is talented, but he's also been injury-prone. And in the NFL, availability matters as much as ability. If McCaffrey keeps producing like this, he's earned the right to stay in that rotation, no matter who's back on the field. That's how winning cultures are built, by rewarding performance, not pedigree. Let's give credit where it's due. Commanders fans saw this coming before anyone else. All offseason, the comments, the social media threads, the fan mail, they all said the same thing. Luke McCaffrey deserves a chance. And now, Dan Quinn just validated that belief. He's turned opportunity into impact. He's transformed potential into production. And more than anything, he's become a symbol of what this new Commanders era is all about. Earning everything. So let's call it like it is. The Washington Commanders are one aggressive trade away from being a legitimate playoff contender. Dan Quinn has this locker room believing. The defensive front has found its teeth again. And Jaden Daniels, even coming off injury, is showing the poise of a leader far beyond his years. But football is about timing. And right now, the timing couldn't be better for Adam Peters to strike. Whether it's Trey Hendrickson or another elite pass rusher, this is the moment where Washington can decide if it wants to just compete or truly contend. Would you pull the trigger on a deal for Trey Hendrickson, or do you think the secondary should still be the focus? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll be reading through all your comments. And hey, if you love this kind of in-depth Commanders coverage, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Commanders HQ, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next insider update. We're building something special here, just like your Washington Commanders.